Yan. Okay, so yan na yung material na gagamitin ko para at least papaano nabasa nyo na and mag-jive tayo ng materials na ginagamit. Okay, so we are now on the Q2 week 2 lessons. Okay, so for the our last lessons dun sa first week. Okay, we discuss about research designs. Yan, so ang mga research designs natin, meron tayong descriptive. Okay, we have correlational. Yan, dun sa descriptive, hiniwalay nila actually ang correlational is a type of descriptive also. Pero ang ginawa nila dun sa module ay separate. Okay, ang ibig sabihin nila dun sa descriptive ay yung mga survey designs, survey research designs. Okay, pangalawa is correlational. Pangatlo, we have the what we call the causal comparative or the ex post facto. And sa next one, yung pang-apat, we have the quasi experimental, yung nangangailangan ng intervention or treatment. And of course, yung true experimental, pero doon sa module ninyo, ang ginamit is experimental. Yan. So we learn the differences or we will learn when to use those designs on our studies. Okay, we are now on our Q2 week 2 lessons. We have here the 3 most essential learning competencies. The first one, construct an instrument and establishes its validity and reliability. That's the first one. Okay. And the second one, describe intervention if applicable. Okay? Sir, bakit may word na if applicable? Kasi hindi lahat ng mga studies natin ay nangangailangan tayo ng intervention. Kailan natin kailangan ng intervention, sir? Kailangan natin ng intervention if the design of our study is experimental or yung quasi tsaka yung true experimental. That's the time we need this intervention or we will describe the intervention. Okay, next, plan data collection procedure. Yan, so meron tayong data collection procedure. So mamaya i-discuss dito sa module ninyo yung mga different data collection procedures. Okay? So the first lesson for today, lesson 3, is of course this research instrument validity and reliability. Yan. So what you need to know? So ano yung mga kailangan nating malaman on this module? Okay? Of course, ang kailangan nyo malaman is this one. Ano ba yung mga quantitative research instruments na pwede nating gamitin? Yan. According to this, what do you think will happen if tools for building a house is not prepared meticulously? Yan. So ano-ano daw yung mangyayari sa pagtatayo ng isang bahay kung hindi natin na-prepare ng maayos yung tools na gagamitin, 'di ba? O maraming mga pwedeng mangyari. Pwedeng matatagalan yung pag-build ng house kasi yung tools na ginamit natin ay medyo siguro hindi akma or something like that, or baka magkaroon ng problema o aberya dun sa bahay, baka biglang mag-collapse kung sakali man na maitayo na using incorrect tools. Okay? This is the same through with when getting information for answers to a research problem. Tools or instruments. Okay? So ganun din sa paggawa ng isang or sa paggandak ng isang study, we need to prepare our tools or instruments carefully. Yan. In constructing a quantitative research instrument, it is very important to remember that the tools created should require responses or data that will be numerically analyzed. Yan. Again, ang kailangan ninyong malaman sa lesson 3 or lesson na ito ay yung paggawa or pag-determine ng instrument or appropriate instrument na pwede nating gamitin dun sa mga studies ninyo para makuha natin yung mga responses or yung tinatawag na data na makakasagot dun sa inyong mga research questions. Okay? So, to define what are research instruments, they are just basic tools researchers use to gather data for specific research problems. Common instruments are, ito, pwedeng performance test. Yan. So, magpapa-exam kayo, magpapa-test, magbibigay ng test sa mga respondents. Or, questionnaires, yung mga survey questionnaires. Or, interviews. But interviews and observation checklists are commonly used in qualitative research. So yung first two instruments na usually na ginagamit natin sa quantitative, itong dalawa, performance tests and questionnaires. Okay? Itong dalawang to, interviews, observation checklist, ay usually ginagamit sa quali. No? Okay. Pero, pwede naman nating gamitin sa quanti itong interviews and observation checklist as long as yung mga nakuha nating mga informations ay ita-translate natin into numerical data. Okay? So, pwede yon. Pwede nating gamitin. Pero medyo mahirapan tayo. So, doon na tayo sa dalawa. Performance tests and questionnaires. And so, what is it? Ano ba yung nandito sa lesson na ito? In constructing the research instrument of the study, there are many factors to be considered. Yan. So, imagine nyo na lang, mayroon na kayong topic, no? Of course, mayroon na kayo, nakapili na kayo. So, ngayon pa lang, dapat iniisip nyo na, ano yung instrument o research instrument na gagamitin ninyo. Joshua and Irish, what do you think? Ano kaya ang instrument na gagamitin ninyo? Is it a performance test or questionnaires? What do you think? Magpapa-exam ba kayo? Magbibigay ba kayo ng multiple types of tests? Kasi pwede yun performance test or questionnaires. Okay. Guess nyo lang, ano kaya? Joshua? Ano kaya gagamitin nyo, Joshua?
Sir, para sa akin po questionnaire.
Yes, very good. Questionnaires. Parehas kayo ni Irish. Questionnaires ang gagamitin nyo, no? Okay? Yan yung magiging instrument ninyo. Questionnaires. Yan. Okay, so there are many factors to be considered. So sa paggawa daw ng isang instrument, which is yung questionnaire dun sa gagamitin dun sa study ninyo, maraming factors ang kailangan i-consider. The first one is, of course, the type of instrument. So okay na kayo dyan. Number 2, reasons for choosing the type. Ano kaya ang reason nyo kung bakit yun ang napili nyo? Explain nyo lang naman. And the description and conceptual definition of its parts are some of the factors that need to be decided before constructing a research instrument. Yan. Again, okay na kayo dun sa type. Ang napili nyo, or ang gagamitin talaga natin dun sa study ninyo ay questionnaires. Okay na tayo dyan. Anong reason kung bakit yan ang napili? You're just going to state your reason kung bakit questionnaire ang gagamitin. Description and conceptual definition of its parts. Ano yung mga parts nung questionnaire natin? Actually, may mga parts yan. Part 1, ano yung nalagay sa part 1? Lagi yung tatandaan, pag sinabing instrument, ito yung ipapasagot sa mga respondents. Ito yung sasagutan nila. No? Kaya nga instrument, kasi nga instrumento nyo ito para makuha nyo yung mga data na kailangan sa mga respondents. Nakuha? Para makuha yung data na manggagaling sa mga respondents. At ang tool na gagamitin ay yung research instrument. Which is, sa inyong mga studies, ang kailangan nyo ay questionnaires. Okay, so furthermore, it is also very important to understand the concept of skills of research instruments and how to establish validity and reliability of instruments. Yan. Okay, so kailangan clear sa inyo dapat daw yung skills na gagamitin. Skills, of course, validity ng inyong instrument, tsaka reliability. Yan. So we have characteristics of a good research instrument. The first one, it must be concise, sequential, valid and reliable, and easily tabulated. Okay. Pag sinabi nating concise, kumbaga brief, short, yung hindi, kumbaga pagka nakita ng mga respondents ninyo ay hindi sila, kumbaga masusuya or singaagaran na tama, di ba? Hindi siya makapataman answeran. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, hindi dapat siya napakahaba. Yan. Okay? Kailangan concise or brief. At the same time, concise siya na nandun lahat yung mga kailangan mong data or makukuha mo lahat yung mga kailangan mong data. Hindi naman pwede na maiksi nga, pero kulang-kulang naman yung mga items. So, hindi natin masasagutan yung ating mga research questions pag kulang-kulang. Yan. So, that's concise, the first one. Second one, sequential. Ibig sabihin, may sequence. Alam natin kung ano dapat yung mas magandang ilagay sa unahan at dun sa pangalawang part, pangatlo, and so on. Okay? And according to this one, it is recommended to arrange your instrument, yung mga content ng instruments ninyo, yung mga questions, from simplest to the most complex. So start muna natin dun sa mga pinakasimple na items hanggang doon sa pinaka-complex. Okay? Next, valid and reliable. So, instrument should pass the test for validity and reliable. Pag sinabi nating valid, yan, so we are measuring what we need to measure. So, mame-measure natin dapat kung ano talaga ang kailangan nating i-measure. So, lahat ng mga items ninyo dapat ay masasagutan yung ating mga research questions. Reliable naman, so kahit ilang beses nating i-test ay, of course, makukuha natin yung ating target. That's reliable. Okay, easily tabulated. Yung mga data natin na makukuha natin doon sa ating instrument ay matatabulate natin ng mas madali or madaling ma-tabulate o mailagay sa isang table. Yan. So, don't worry. Sa data analysis natin, ituturo ko sa inyo kung paano mag-tabulate ng data. Okay, so ito rin, pinaka-importante ito. Ways in developing research instrument. Yan. Irish, ano yung tatlo na ways? Ano yung una? Pwedeng, what is the first one? The
Yung
first,
ano sa yung instrument,
yes.
yung
Ways,
questionnaire.
ways in developing research instrument. Nasa page 10. Ito, tingnan mo na lang ito. Anong pinakauna na paraan sa pagde-develop? Kasi nasa developing research instrument na tayo. First one is,
Ano sir, adapting an instrument.
okay, very good. Adapting an instrument. Sa tingin ko, baka yan ang kaya nating gawin. What do you think? Mag-adapt na lang tayo ng instrument na nagamit na ng mga previous related studies. Okay? Yan. Pero sir, paano pagka doon sa inadapt namin na instruments, may mga items na kailangan ay kulang para masagutan yung aming mga research questions. Ito na yung pangalawa. Modify an existing instrument. Mayroon na kayong instrument, available na ang instrument na nagamit na sa mga previous studies. Pero may kulang na items. Dadagdagan natin. Ang tawag doon, modifying an existing instrument. You can add or delete. So that's modifying. Okay? So doon sa dalawa, sir, hindi ba kami matcha-charge ng plagiarize dyan? Matcha-charge kayo kung hindi nyo isa-cite yung pinanggalingan or kung sino yung gumawa ng instrument. You need to cite the source of the instrument. Madali naman mag-cite, di ba? I-cite nyo lang kung kanino yung instrument na yan. Yan. So may template din kung paano mag-cite. Ituturo ko sa inyo. Okay? And ito ang pinaka mahirap. Researcher made his own instrument. So siguro hindi pa natin kakayanin ito, yung gumawa ng sariling instrument na valid at the same time reliable. Madaling gumawa ng instrument, kaya natin gawin. Ang problema, is the instrument valid or reliable? Yun ang problema natin. We are not sure if the instrument that we will construct or make is valid or reliable. Kasi madugo din ang proseso ng paggawa ng sariling instrument. Kailangan dumaan yan sa validation process and reliability process. Okay, so tatlo yan. Siguro doon tayo sa una at pangalawa. Okay, next, we have here the common scales used in quantitative research. Familiar ba kayo dito? Likert scale? O first time?
First
Irish?
time sir.
First time, okay. Pero siguro nakikita nyo na ito. Likert scale. This is the most common scale used in quantitative research. Respondents were asked to rate or rank statements according to the scale provided. Ito yung kung na-try nyo na magsagot ng survey or isang questionnaire, may mga nilalagay na 5, 4, 4, apat lang. So 4, 3, 2, 1. Yan. So, ito yung example ng isang instrument, okay? Research instrument for a certain variable or construct. Ang tawag sa construct natin or variable natin, attitude, no? Attitude towards distance learning. Okay? So that's our construct. And how many items do we have? Joshua, how many items do we have on the instrument dun sa construct? Ilang items mayroon?
Dito,
Oo.
dito po ba sa, ano, sir? Saang basis po, sir? Dito po sa
Yes,
example?
example. Ilang items? Ang dalawa
Dalawa po,
lang, no?
sir.
So, 2 items. Yan. 2 items. And then, of course, yung mga respondents ang sasagot dyan. Kung sasagot si Irish, ano sa tingin mo? There would be difficulty in communicating our concerns to our teacher. Strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree. What do you think, Irish?
Agree.
Agree. Buti hindi mo nilagay strongly agree. Okay. Agree. Yan, medyo may kahirapan, no? May kahirapan talaga. Okay, how about si Joshua? There would be many distractions when learning at home than in school.
Strongly, sir.
Strongly agree. Strongly agree. Ang daming distractions, no? Yan. Kailangan
Yes po,
maghanap
sir.
kayo ng space sa bahay ninyo na less ang distractions. Okay, next, we can also have, we're done with the Likert scale. Pwede rin ito, semantic differential. Pero madalang tong gamitin. Ang pinaka-common is, commonly used, itong Likert scale. Okay, semantic differential. In this scale, a series of, bipolar adjectives. So, ibig sabihin bipolar, dalawang adjectives na yung isa positive, yung isa negative. Kaya nga bipolar. Will be rated by the respondents. This scale seems to be more advantageous since it is more flexible and easy to construct. Yan. So just for example, the item is about the description of an active student in school activities. Hindi mo na kailangan maglagay ng mga statements diyan. Ang ilalagay mo na lang ito yung ating rating scale. So mayroon tayong bipolar adjectives, pleasant and unpleasant. Ilagay mo sa gitna yung 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yan. 1, so unpleasant talaga yan. 2, siguro medyo. 3, yan. Medyo nasa gitna, no? 4, medyo malapit na sa pleasant. 5, talagang pleasant siya. And so on. So, ganun. Ang tawag dyan, semantic differential. Okay. Next is, so we are done with the two scales that we can use. We can have the Likert scale or semantic differential. So, okay na tayo dyan. Next naman is the validity. So, sa paggawa o pag-construct, ayan, suppose gagawa tayo ng sarili nating instrument, kailangan nating establish yung validity and reliability. So, ito mga types ng validity, hindi ko masyadong i-explain sa inyo ito kasi medyo matagal na explanation ito kung talagang ipapaliwanag. Kailangan natin ng mga examples dito, ikukulangin tayo ng oras. Yan. So, doon sa training na inatinan ko, diniscuss nila ito ng halos 3 oras by using examples. Okay, so start natin by defining what is validity. Yan. Paano natin masasabi na ang isang i-research instrument ay valid? Yan. So valid daw siya if it measures what is supposed to measure. So, ang ibig sabihin lang naman yan, dapat yung mga nilalagay mong items, parang ito sa atin, sa taas. Yung mga ilalagay mong items, dapat masasagutan niya yung mga research questions na nandoon sa statement of the problem para masabi natin na valid yung ating instrument. Pag hindi niya masasagutan, hindi valid yung ating instrument. Yan. Just for example, when measuring oral communication proficiency level of students, So oral, no? Oral communication proficiency level of students. Speech performance using rubric or rating scale is more valid. Okay? Then, students are given multiple choice tests. Kasi nga, we are measuring oral. Kung ginamit mo itong multiple choice test, hindi na siya oral. Paano mo matetest yung oral communication proficiency level? So, ang gagamitin natin is speech performance using rubric or rating scale. So, pagka ganun ang ginamit natin, itong multiple choice test, ang ginamit natin as our instrument, so mali na agad, hindi na agad valid yung ating research instrument. So, pagka magde-defense kayo, especially pagka sa college, hindi na valid yung instrument ninyo, mag-uulit kayo. Yan. So we have different types of validity of instrument. We have face validity, content validity. Pag sinabi nating face validity, ang gagawin lang naman ng researcher ay titignan lang niya yung instrument kung valid ba siya at saka siya magde-decide. Kaya nga face validity. Ibig sabihin hindi niya natitignan yung mga items doon mismo, hindi niya naiisa-isahin. Okay? Pagka inaisa-isa naman niya, ang tawag doon, that's content validity. And we can also have the construct validity. Yan, maraming validity test. Concurrent, predictive validity. Itong mga ito, mga different validities na ito ay depende sa kung ano yung kailangan nating i-test na instrument. Okay? So next, we have the reliability of instrument. So reliability class refers to the consistency of the measures or results of the instrument. So mayroon dapat consistency doon sa mga result using the instrument. So consistency, consistent. Yan. So we can have test, retest, reliability. It is achieved by giving the same test to the same group or respondents twice. So dapat daw the consistency of the two scores will be checked. So that's test, retest. So nag-test yung unang grupo and then magte-test ulit sila. And then iti-test natin kung consistent yung result. Consistent yung mga scores nila. That's test, retest, reliability. Equivalent forms reliability naman, it is established by administering two identical tests. So doon sa test, retest, reliability, dalawang grupo. Okay? Dalawang parehas na test pala. And iti-test, i-administer yung test doon sa same group. Okay? And then meron tayong pre-test tsaka post-test. Pre-test, magte-test sila. And then after siguro how many days, magte-test ulit. Tignan natin kung may consistency doon sa scores nila. That's test, retest, reliability. Equivalent forms reliability naman, it is established by administering two identical tests except for wordings to the same group of respondents. And of course, this one. Yan, sabi ko nga, maintindihan natin itong mga ito kung may mga halimbawa ng ano. So don't worry kasi doon sa mga studies ninyo, hindi nyo naman kailangang i-test ang validity and reliability because you will adopt instrument. Yan. Okay, so what's more? You have here activity 1, qualify and rate the instrument. All you have to do is to look for sample research instruments from previously conducted research. Rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 lowest, 5 is the highest based on the criteria given. Then justify your rating. So sa Google Scholar na lang, tingin kayo ng isang research or isang study. Isulat nyo yung sample instrument dito kung posibleng nilagay nila yung title ng instrument. Pero kung hindi, wag na lang. Ano yung purpose ng research instrument? Ilagay dyan. Number of items. Ilang items? Kanina 2 items lang yon. So, doon sa makukuha ninyong example ng isang research study sa Google Scholar, ilang items kaya ang ginamit? Ano yung scale na ginamit? Is it Likert scale? Okay? Or ano yung pangalawa natin kanina? Irish? Likert scale or? Yung 2 types.
Semantic differential.
Okay, very good. Semantic differential. Yan, yung isulat nyo dyan. Okay, so ito na yung criteria for evaluation of instrument. So, rating. Ano ang rating natin? 1 is the lowest, 5 is the highest. You can have 2, 3, 4. Basta 1 is the lowest, 5 is the highest. And justification, sequential, valid and reliable, easily tabulated. Ito yung characteristics kanina ng isang good instrument. I-rate nyo lang. And then i-justify. Usually, naka-state din yan eh. Naka-state doon sa part nung research na kukunin ninyo sa Google Scholar. Yun din ang ilalagay nyong justification. Bakit siya concise? Nakita nyo ba na hindi gaanong marami yung mga items? Sakto lang. Sequential. Bakit sequential? Bakit nyo masabing valid and reliable? Bakit easily tabulated and so on? So, yung justification nyo din, makakatulong yung mga discussions tong 4 na yan, yung kanina. Depende doon sa itsura nung instrument na ginamit doon sa study. Okay, next, activity 2. Search and evaluate the instrument. Directions. Search for a sample research study. Identify the ways of establishing the validity and reliability of the instrument. Okay. For example, title of the research study. Mag-search kayo ng isang halimbawa ng title of the research study. Ano yung ginamit na ano yung type ng research instrument? Ano yung way para ma-develop, way of developing the instrument? Ano yung scale na ginamit? How the validity of the instrument was established? And reliability. And of course, the source. So, ganun din ang gagawin ninyo sa example number 2. Wala kayong questions dyan? Okay naman? Ilang studies ang kailangan? 2 lang naman, no? Example 1 and example 2. Okay. Yeah, next. Research intervention. Intervention. Kailan tayo nagkakaroon ulit? So, what's in? Kailan tayo nagkakaroon ng research intervention? Ano yung design na nangangailangan ng research intervention? Yun yung quasi, experimental, and experimental designs. So kapag ang design ng study ninyo ay quasi and experimental or true experimental, then you will need this intervention. Ano sa tingin nyo yung sa inyo? Kailangan ba?
Hindi, sir.
Hindi. Yan. Wala kayong intervention. Kasi correlational. Wala kayong intervention. Okay, so yon. So nature of research intervention. So in experimental research, the researcher decides the nature of intervention or treatment. Intervention pertains to what is going to happen to the subjects of the study. This decision covers who will receive the intervention, to what extent it will be applied to them. Yan. As for example, in a study of determining the effects of special tutorial program, ito yung ating intervention, the special tutorial program to learners at risk of failing. Researcher decides the group of LARF who will receive intervention. So, identify dapat ng researcher kung sino yung makaka-receive ng intervention. In this example, special tutorial program is the research. Yun nga, ito yung ating research intervention. Furthermore, the extent to which the program will be administered to the learners is determined. So, meron tayong mga steps in describing the research intervention process. The first one, write the background information. Describe the differences and similarities between experimental and control groups. Describe the procedures of the intervention. Yan, so kailangan i-describe natin yung procedure. Yan, kung paano it includes how will the intervention happens to achieve the desired result of the study. Yan, so paano natin i-implement yung paggamit ng intervention or pag-apply ng intervention dun sa ating mga respondents. Explain din yung procedure. Explain the basis of procedure. Ano yung basis? Anong reason? Kung bakit ito, the reason for choosing the intervention and process should clear and concrete. And okay, and next one, last one. Hindi ko na masyadong diniscuss yung intervention kasi okay naman na tayo dyan. Next, for the last lesson, lesson 5, planning data collection or the data collection procedure. Okay, so what's in? So, napag-aralan nyo na natin or na-discuss na natin yung mga factors para ma-develop natin yung instruments na gagamitin natin, especially sa mga studies ninyo. And now, we can now identify the steps that we're going to undertake sa actual gathering of data. Yan. So, inanarrate natin yung tinatawag na procedures, yung data collection procedures. Okay? Of course, in a logical way. So, what you need to know? So, generally, data are any pieces of information or facts that people have known. Once this data answers the research problem, it becomes helpful to research. When research data appears to be measurable in the numerical form, it is considered quantitative data. Yan. Ibig sabihin lang yan, pagka nasagutan na yung inyong mga instruments, so may mga informations doon na lalabas. At of course, since we are on the quantitative research, yung information na yon ay tatawagan nating quantitative data. However, some qualitative data can also be useful to quantitative research once it is given a numerical value. Yan, kapag ka binigyan ng numerical value. For example, if your study about adjustment experiences of students to distant learning, if it is categorized and numbered accordingly, then it can be quantified during analysis. Yan. So, pwede pala yon. Pwede rin yon. Pwede rin na ang isang qualitative results or data ay pwedeng gawin as in a numerical form. Yan. Bago tayo mag-conduct ng data analysis. So we can have that one. Okay, so what are techniques in collecting quantitative data. Yan. So hindi tayo basta-basta ah, kukuha o magko-collect ng mga data na hindi natin alam kung ano yung techniques na gagamitin. Yan. Ano ba yung mga common na ginagamit? We can have observation. Okay? Observation. So, pwede tayong gumamit ng observation checklist. Ito. Para hindi tayo mahirapan sa pagkuha ng mga data na nakikita natin doon sa ating mga subjects of the study. Yan. Usually observation ay ginagamit ito sa mga experimental mga experiments. Yan, ino-observe mo kung gaano kabilis ano na yung length nung stem ng isang halaman sa araw na ito and so on. That's observation. Okay, ano yung mga karaniwang or nakakailang itlog ang isang manok sa isang linggo, for example. That's observation. Kaya mayroon tayo dapat observation checklist na ginagamit. Okay, next. A survey. So survey, ito na yung gagamit tayo ng questionnaire pagka quantitative. So we can also have interview. Yan. So again, data coming from interview can be converted to numerical form. Yan, so pwede po yan. Yan, so we have survey. Next, experiment. And when your study is an experimental design, it was already discussed in the previous lesson that it would use treatment or intervention. Yan. So, ganun lang po ang mga different techniques in collecting quantitative data. Okay. So, what are the three phases in data collection? So, tandaan ito and pakiunawaang maigi kasi ilalagay ito sa chapter 3. Itong three phases in data collection. In doing research, data collection is, of course, the major component of research. So kapag walang data collection, hindi tayo makakakuha ng result ng study. Neglecting to clarify the collection procedure would result in acquiring inaccurate data that will make your research study invalid, of course. Hence, the data collection procedure is given meticulous attention to gather appropriate data. You're making sure that data you will gather answers to your research questions. Yan. Ano ba yung mga data gathering procedures? Ano ba yung mga tatlong steps na kailangan nating sundin? Number one, ito yung mga kailangan nating ilagay before you will gather the data. Ano yung procedure na gagawin before you will gather the data? Okay? Before gathering the data, kung pupunta ka sa isang school, of course, kailangan mong mag-seek ng permission. Sulatan mo yung principal. Yan, para payagan ka na mag-conduct ng isang survey. What to do during the actual gathering of data? Anong gagawin kapag nandun ka na sa mga kaharap mo na yung mga respondents mo? Ilalagay mo din yung procedure. Number 3, the things to consider after data has been gathered. Pagkatapos ng pag-gather mo ng data, ano nang gagawin mo dun sa nakolekta mong data? I-state mo din. Okay, so the following are the suggested steps but not limited to it. So mayroong example dito daw. Yan. So ito yung example. So pwede ninyong gamitin na lang ito. Okay, so before, you can prepare the research instruments. You can do that. Pero ang gusto ko, isulat nyo in a paragraph form. Hindi nakalagay as ganitong format. I-paragraph form nyo na lang. Before prepare the research instruments, you can do that. Of course, kailangan natin i-prepare yung research instrument. Yan yung procedure na gagawin muna. Ayan, identify the authorities that will be involved and need to ask permission. Yan, mga authorities, pwedeng principal, pwedeng supervisor, pwedeng kapitan, and so on. Determine the sample size and corresponding respondent. So sample size, ano yung sample size natin? Ibig sabihin ng sample size, ilan yung mga respondents? Per group, kapag may control group or nagrupo sila, so i-identify natin. As consent form, if respondents are 18 years old above, or parents consent if minor. Okay, so huwag kakalimutan daw ito. I-state nyo rin sa procedure. Pagka 18 years old and above, so may consent form dapat silang i-fill up. Pipirma sila. Pagka minor naman, parents consent. So parent ang pipirma. Okay? Pilot test the research instrument if needed. So since i-adapt lang natin yung ating research instrument, so hindi na kailangan ng pilot test. Pero kung i-modify natin, siguro this time hindi na rin kailangan kasi kulang tayo ng oras. Okay. Next, during. What are we going to do during the data collection? Clear the instructions provided to the respondents. Yan. Ipaliwanag ng maigi yung instructions na nilagay natin doon sa ating questionnaires para hindi malito o baka mali yung maisagot kung hindi klaro yung instructions. Next, administer the research instrument or implement the research intervention if applicable, kung may intervention. Collect or gather or take note of the responses. Of course, during, magko-collect na tayo ng mga responses, mag-gather na tayo, or kapag observation yan, take note natin yung mga responses nila. After, pagkatapos ng ating data collection, anong gagawin? Meron na tayong data na hawak-hawak. After gathering the data, summarize na natin yung data natin in a tabular form. So, huwag kayo mag-alala, tuturuan ko kayo kung paano gawin yan. Analyze the summarized data corresponding to the research questions. I-analyze natin yung nakasummarize na data corresponding to the research questions. So we can analyze using statistical tools. Yan, para masagot natin yung research questions. So again, ang gusto kong itsura ng ating data collection procedure ay naka-state in a paragraph form. Okay, so that's end our lessons on week